right. Yes, it's right. It's BC Hunter along with the Nightmare Jay Myers once again bringing you our November to Remember here on WWTT. And boy, have we ever had a November to Remember so far, and it just keeps getting better. Had a fantastic guest last week, Ted from Hooked on Movies, and talked about some of the best wrestling and maybe worst wrestling movies that are out there. We had a really good time with that. Ted's also a very passionate wrestling fan, so that was a fantastic episode. But we have another person who's both a wrestling aficionado as well as a movie aficionado. So, Jay, would you like to do the honors to welcome our guest this week?
Not to mention another fellow, what is it called? Chicagoland? Is that what you guys call it for that area? Yeah. No, the Chicagoan. I don't know. I just made that up. So, yeah, we got back-to-back Second City. Isn't that what's called, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, Mr. Matt Ritter, the host of Getting Off and Smackin It Raw, welcome. We super happy to have you here, and I am probably a little more jacked up than BC because we can get into some nitty gritty here of the good stuff, the bloody stuff. But yeah, welcome, man. Happy to have you here,
dude. I appreciate it. When you told me we were going to talk a little bit of the two things I love the most in the world, wrestling and horror movies, I was so stoked. I was supposed to have you on Getting Off for the Halloween review, and we weren't able to make it happen after Halloween.
Well, I wasn't able to make it because I'm fucking old, and it was really late for me, and I just was I was dead. So
where are you guys? Because
Nova Scotia.
There you go. So we're 2
Atlantic
hours
Canada.
ahead. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is messed up because we're an hour ahead of Eastern time. So you're just used to Eastern time, and we're another hour after that. So it's worse.
Yeah, you told me Atlantic time, and I'm sitting there and I'm talking to my wife and I'm explaining to her everything because normally we do shoot a little later, and she's like, I don't think Atlantic time is a thing. And I'm like, oh, it's a thing. He told me, I've got it here. So she looked, and she is a huge fan of Oak Island. So when she was looking, she was trying to figure out, are they up by Oak Island? And she got all excited about that. So
we're not far. Yeah, we're about an hour, I guess, from Oak Island?
At most. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's so the province, which is state for you guys, is say 7 hours drive front to top to bottom, I guess. It's
about 10 from
maybe
Cape
10,
Breton all the way to Yarmouth.
Total, I guess. But so we're not massive, but it's the most densely populated area in the area we're in, and then there's Montreal. So it's Montreal is kind of where people from Montreal and Toronto say is the east, but then we're actually more east than Montreal. So anyway, it was messed up time, man. It's even worse when you're in Newfoundland because that's even a half-hour difference from us. So anyway, but I wasn't bullshitting. That was a legit thing. It was about 1 o'clock, and I was like, I am not gonna. This is not gonna go well if I get on there. So I did pull the chute, but I was super stoked to talk about it, and we're gonna get into Halloween Ends. That's on the list. Yeah. But first, we wanted to make sure you can get all of our listeners up to speed on you and your shows and your whole crew, and sort of give us basically pimp your shit is we should just call it a segment, but pimp your shit.
Yeah, we should make that a segment.
I think I like it. I just came up with it, but I like it.
There you go.
You absolutely should, and that's a great name. For all of the listeners of Wrestling with the Truth who are not familiar with me, I'm the patron saint of podcasting, the Warden Matt Ritter. I'm the host of the Smackin It Raw podcast, which, if you're watching this, you can see down there is the #1 wrestling podcast on PornHub. Also, Getting Off, which is the #1 horror podcast on PornHub. And we do a weekly review over at Smackin It Raw. It is me, Vince, and Katie from the She Elite Showcase, my two co-hosts, and whatever guests we end up having on. Every Friday, we're live 11 p.m. Central, right when I get home from work. We cover the week in wrestling for whatever the guests or who we have on is watched. So generally it's Raw, SmackDown, NXT, Dynamite, and Rampage. But if we have somebody on who's a New Japan fan and they watch New Japan or they watched Impact or some, GCW, whatever they want to talk about, the format is set up so that they can spit or swallow what they like or what they didn't like or gargle the week in wrestling. And then Getting Off is just us talking whatever random horror movie stuff we want to talk. It's all under the banner of Creation World, which also will give you hashtag them dragons, which was a recap of House of Dragons. There's Creation Comics, where Travis and Mara sit down. They talk DC and Marvel TV shows, comic book movies, and things like that, as well as a bunch of other fun stuff. And everything is available on YouTube, on Twitch, and on PornHub if you're already there and you want to come check us out. So yeah, that's pretty much the rundown of what we do.
That's amazing, man. But it's like, for me, even more so, because it's like two of my biggest passions, and we're gonna get into that next. It's
Porn and wrestling, or
well, okay, maybe three, but like pro wrestling and horror movies, and it is my two biggest passions as well as far as fandoms go, I guess. And like if we're talking just fandoms, and like for me, they really are. I think they're 1A and 1B. Like they are so much, and I don't even call myself a movie cinephile. You know what I mean? I am a freak when it comes to horror movies. I don't sit down and watch like the latest drama or the latest comedy. Like I will watch it. I'll go to the theater to watch like a Marvel movie or whatever. But I am like passionate about like slasher specifically. But like I will kind of venture out of slash. But like that is where like I will seek out like the shittiest B movie I can find or whatever, right? So like I do consider them both 1A, sort of 1B passions. But like for you, is it the same kind of idea, or is there one thing that sort of started for you more so than the other for these two passions?
I'm literally just the American version of you, like literally everything you said. So growing up, big wrestling fan, really got into horror. I've been watching horror my entire life. I did an episode of Getting Off where we talked about movies that scared us, and I told stories from my childhood of my mom terrifying me. We watched horror movies from when I should not have been watching horror movies, but like my love for horror movies was really in like my teens and then through my early 20s, even at the point to where I kind of fell off watching wrestling before I got back into it. But yeah, no, it's 1A, 1B. And as you said, if you look behind me with Chucky and Pinhead and Michael and Jason, and it's the slashers, it's, the franchises, it's the mythology behind the franchises. Because I'm one of those people where you're like, oh, what's your favorite Halloween movie? And I'm going to tell you Halloween 6, and everyone looks at me like I'm fucking crazy. But it's like,
that's a hot take already, man. Wow.
It is, but I have the mark of the thorn right there. It gives a reason for Michael to have. It's the mythology behind the characters that I love, and it's the same thing in wrestling, because my favorite wrestlers are The Fiend, are The Undertaker, are Sting from WCW. It's these characters that, they're kind of dark and they do have a little bit of horror movie, roots, but they've got a lot of mythology behind them. And that's what I love about horror. And that's what I love about wrestling is, yes, the moves are great and there are matches and all of these things, and I can watch them and have a great time, but I really care about the characters. I care about the people in the movies that I watch and the wrestlers on the screen. When you give me something to latch onto, when, Undertaker is this undead guy who killed his family and his brother he thought was dead comes back to life and he's supposed to be all like that is, I'm like, all right, this is cool. This is awesome. You got this guy that they're essentially Michael and Jason at some point coming down, ripping cage doors. That's what hooks me. Mankind, the character work for Mankind, the backstory for Mankind when he first came in, that feud with the Undertaker, that's the stuff that hooks me in wrestling. So
no, it's such a good point, and I'm very, like, the parallels are pretty crazy actually, because I can vividly remember I've been told this from his wife multiple times, but I can even remember like totally ruining horror movies for my buddy because we watched, I think we might have been 11, maybe 10 or 11, and watching part 6, Jason, like, which is one of my favorites. And I think my sister, who was 3 years older, her friends were watching it, and I was like, oh, let's watch. He to this day is terrified, like won't watch, and she tells me every single time how scared he is of, and she can't watch this, she can't watch it. I was like, hey, I don't know, whatever. So I can, same deal. I can remember the earliest, so it's just kind of entwined with my sort of growing up too, and never we kind of are very similar too. I've never deviated from that sort of family where I did. We've talked about this a lot on the show. Like there was a gap in the early 90s for me where I was out of wrestling. Like it was just like, and it was like at 13 through 16, 17. So maybe it was just like those years of teenage years, but yeah, so it's weird. It's like a very creepy parallel. So, I guess on that, on that
Jay,
topic,
just before you jump
yeah,
in
go,
there,
go
I was
for it.
going to mention too, like I just got finished right before our episode, your episode that you just did, the latest for getting off on the Slasherverse. And I kept mentioning it last week with our guest as far as the Hooked on Movies show, that it's not just two guys getting on there going thumbs up, thumbs down for this stuff. And you know, here's why we like it. And here's our Rotten Tomato score. They like go deep in these movies. And like, that was the same thing that I had to say about your show. You guys aren't just talking about, hey, what's the coolest beheading in this movie? No, it's like you went deep on that, the way you dissect it. And I mean, you were writing a book, you know, as far as, you know.
I was writing something. I don't necessarily know. And I felt really bad about that episode because at the end, like I found it and then like I'm not even really paying attention. Like Justin and Katie are talking and I'm like scanning through and I'm like, I shouldn't be doing that while I'm doing a podcast. So I apologize for that. But yeah, no,
it was great.
I was writing something. I don't know what it will end up being, but no, like you said, I love digging into because with these movies, you have all of this lore and it changes. And that's the one thing that drives me insane about both wrestling and about horror movies is, for example, Jason changes over time. The way that you can kill him changes through certain movies, whether it's what they give us in Jason Goes to Hell or, you know, how he's brought back to life with lightning and the parallels to Frankenstein. Like there are all these things, but there are concrete facts. There are dates where things happened and everything. And I wanted to try and tie everything together with that Slasherverse conversation and find a way through the Necronomicon Ex Mortis to kind of give a reason for how all of my favorite slashers got their powers, even, you know, through the means that they kind of explain, but not really, as well as clean up the timelines a little bit because everything's really scattered and everything's all over the place. Halloween has, if you count Rob Zombie, 4 timelines.
Well, actually, it's funny. I was going to bring this up as you just mentioned it. I just watched the video. I don't know if you watch him. Cody Leach is great horror content on YouTube, and he had top 10. He actually ordered I think it was 8 or 10 timelines of Halloween, depending on if you do just one movie counted as one timeline. You can actually go up to about 10 timelines, and he actually ranked them sort of like in his. They're calling he now I don't know if they are, but he called the latest one as the Haddonfield timeline. So like where Haddonfield is kind of anyway, it was really cool. So check out Cody Leach if you haven't already on YouTube. But yeah, it's so cool, man. Like we're definitely on the same page with that. And I get a little more cynical maybe than you do because of all the different Hollywood approaches to these characters and how many times they've bastardized this sort of the timelines and changed them. And your part 6 take on Halloween and BC might not be following, but I don't hate the Thorn timeline. I don't. I actually quite like the Thorn timeline. I just recently rewatched. I was gonna do 4, 5, and 6, and then kind of didn't get a great copy of the 4, so kind of was stuck with 5 and 6. But I have no issues with 6. It's just not my favorite timeline, I guess. But I don't mind the movie on its own. Plus, we've got all kinds of great characters in that too. So,
like Paul Rudd.
Yeah,
I doesn't love Paul Rudd as Tommy Doyle. Like, come on.
Which is a bit annoying though that he will. I think I read that he won't even acknowledge that he did it or whatever. Like he won't even bring it up. I guess now. Yeah, he won't. He kind of dismisses it and he doesn't want to talk about it. He won't. If a reporter brings it up, I don't even think he'll talk about it. But whereas
if I ever get the chance to sit down with him, I'm going to be like, Paul Rudd, I don't care what you say. You were in this movie, and I loved you. You were the better Tommy Doyle.
In it. Yeah, he was good in it. And versus Kevin Bacon, I think he talks about Friday the 13th like very lovingly. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So anyway, it's interesting. So, all right, well, let's pivot off the horror for a bit because we're gonna get back to it. But I don't know about you guys. I stayed up for the 18 hours or whatever to watch Full Gear last night because those pay-per-views are fucking long. But thoughts on Full Gear? Let's talk about Full Gear. Any spoilers out there? Whatever. Matt, you up to speed on what happened last night?
I'm up to speed. I was actually talking to BC Hunter right before we got on. I did not opt into watching the pay-per-view itself. I sat down after everything was said and done, and I watched the full highlight video of everything that happened. So I got all the beats. I saw everyone who won and everything like that. And from what I saw, it looked like a great pay-per-view. Like everyone that I wanted to see win kind of won. And since I watched the highlights, I didn't see any of the botches or anything like that. So if
Yeah.
there were any,
Yeah.
everything looked like it was really good and fun. So
Yeah, BC, did you watch it in full? I don't know.
Yeah,
You mentioned you were
I
going
actually
to. Yeah.
sat down and watched the whole thing.
So did
Yeah.
I, and I will have to say this, Matt. I think your initial take is a good one because I enjoyed it. Like there was not a real. So I find sometimes with their pay-per-views there's a lull, right? I mean, there's just so many matches. You get into a bit of lull, but they did a pretty good job of pacing that out last night. And I was kind of doing other things a little bit, but like pretty much paying attention. And I thought the pacing was good. The opener was a great pick for Jack. Now calling him Jack Perry is also a great pick, I think, too. But that was a good match. And I know there's probably like still some Jungle Boy haters out there, and I'm not a big Jungle Boy guy, but I thought that was a hell of a match. I thought it was really, really good for a cage match to open that show too. And there were some standout matches, like all the women I thought did really well. I thought they held their own on that show. Oh, BC's got a different take, but
just Nyla and Jade. That's the only one that was. Yeah, that was a
Sorry.
mess.
I was kind of
That was
even
a
amazed.
mess, yeah.
I was erasing that one from my mind. But Jade, I love, but that's still Jade is too green to go in there and not put her in there with people who
Yeah.
can just carry her, right?
Yeah.
So that's not her fault, I don't think. But but yeah, I thought it was good. The ending was great. We knew what was going to happen, and it still did happen, and was still good. So yeah, I thought it was a good show overall. I mean, they didn't.
I would have ranked it a B. Honestly,
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
for sure.
And so much. Here's where I was going to go with it too. Is like so much of their stuff on pay-per-view was always like the anticipating of the debut or the sort of the big surprise or whatever, right? And they didn't really roll into any of that. And it was just purely based on the talent roster they had and like booking angles, right? And I thought that was really cool. And I thought that was good. The MJF Mox match was great. And I love Mox getting pissed off. I don't even think he got pissed off, but I love him playing the heel. Like I thought that was great, which again is weird given the booking that they ultimately did. So do you really want to make Mox come out like that? You know, it was a little bit puzzling because now he actually might come off as a heel, right? On Dynamite or whatever, right? If people were carrying that over. And so
it'll be really interesting to see where they go with this because hey, you have Regal essentially assisting MJF and turning on the Blackpool Combat Club. You already have tension in the Blackpool Combat Club with Bryan Danielson and essentially everyone else, especially Daniel Garcia. I was always not Daniel Garcia. I'm sorry, Wheeler Yuta. I was a fan of the idea of having Wheeler Yuta be Mox's guy and Garcia being Bryan Danielson's guy and playing up that tension. They didn't end up going that way. They went with the JAS, but Dynamite. I'm actually really because we've got Samoa Joe as a new TNT champion. We have this story now to see where the Blackpool Combat Club goes, as well as hearing Regal's motivation and reasoning behind why he turned his back on them and helped MJF and where all of this is going. I do have two questions from this though, just from the out of context highlights that I watched. So the cage match, there was one point where I saw in the cage match where they were outside of the cage. So winning by escape was not.
No, it was a pinfall submission only kind of scenario, I think. And I think they've been consistent with that rule for their cage matches, which for me as a video game wrestling guy, I switch that cage escape off every time because I hate that stip. Like you're trying to keep people out and keep you in. Why are you trying? How do you win?
The whole point of the cage.
It's stupid. Yeah, like you should. I
agree.
Everything should happen in the cage. So that I don't know if you saw how they did it, but basically Christian did it as Christian sliminess and got the key and then opened the door and then they kind of kicked Christian out and that kind of got rid of him in the match. And so, I thought it wasn't too campy or whatever, how they accomplished that. So it came off pretty well. But what I did think was, I don't know, PC, if you thought this too. So bloody Jack Perry goes out after winning, goes over to his wife, to his sister and his mom, and gets blood all over them.
Yeah.
I was like,
same thing.
That's gross, man. What the hell?
Yeah, the mom's hair was covered in blood.
Yeah, she had it all over her face when they shot. Anyway, it was pretty fun. But so anyway, but that was where that one came. And I don't find AEW does a great job of explaining the steps, but I think that one's been a consistent one for them for a bit. But even if the show wasn't that great, they did two things right. They put the belt on Hayter, and that was a fantastic match with Storm. Good call.
They made the right call on that, which AEW is notorious for not doing. and the right call with MJF as well.
Yep.
And
Mhm.
the Regal turn was the right call too.
I would also say that not putting the belts back on the Elite was also a good call.
Yes.
I assume
yes,
the Elite were winning.
Mhm.
Soon as that match is there, I'm like, oh, okay, I guess they're giving the belts back to Elite, and then that was a good call too, I thought. And Kenny looked fucking fantastic. Like that dude's been hitting the gym for the last 2 months because he looked jacked.
He looked healthy.
Incredibly
Yeah.
healthy. The Bucks, I mean, I'm like BC knows, I'm not a big Bucks guy, but you know what? I don't know where they're going with them, if they're going to be heel again or if they're going to stick with that face that they were sort of doing before the suspension and stuff. But I thought that was an enjoyable match. And again, I'm not their biggest fan, but I paid attention the whole match because also, can we talk about how fucking good a shape Penta's in now? Like,
yeah.
Dude is ripped now. Like,
Yeah.
what happened there? So that was cool to see too. But and then the angle with Phoenix kind of using the hammer, I thought that was cool. Like, I'm with you, Matt. There's a lot of good angles really bubbling here. And the Samoa Joe thing is interesting too. Like, are they building this out more for like I feel like there's something coming there. I was gonna ask you both. So and I haven't looked this up yet, but anywhere, because the latest I had heard was Regal had not re-signed, was demanding big money to re-sign. Is this possible that this is a way to write off the Blackpool Comic Club and Regal's gone?
I have not heard anything about Regal's contract situation, so that is actually news to me. But I feel like having him screw the Blackpool Combat Club over and then disappear would kind of be a weird choice. Like, because like I said, you're gonna want to hear why he did it. Now, I guess if he comes out and he says why he did it, and then MJF just becomes MJF and says, "I got what I want. I don't need you anymore." Bye.
Beats him up or something like that.
Yeah,
that's a mega heat, right?
Yeah.
If you see old man,
I got what I needed out of you, and see you later. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. That was the couple weeks ago rumor that he was demanding like ludicrous money, like money that he knew they weren't going to pay him, because he's obviously Triple H's right hand man as soon as he goes back there, right? So. Anyway,
well, the other thing, Jay,
the
other angle, they still do have a built-in angle. Even if Regal's got a little bit of time left, they can always go with a stipulation match where Regal's leaves the company or something. And that could be the Combat Club, because it can't be called Blackpool anymore, right? Yeah. But they could be the Combat Club. Either they disassemble and Regal stays or something like that.
Yeah,
but
fair enough.
I like the idea of MJF just turning on him and getting mega heat from that.
Yeah, because like that guy doesn't need anybody. He's a anyway. So great. So I guess we're all kind of on the same page. I thought they did a really good job. I didn't see was there any pre-show stuff? I didn't see if there was pre-show stuff or the whatever they call it.
It was Ricky Starks beat Brian Cage in the so to go to the finals against Ethan Page, and then they had the Dan Harris.
Oh right, the Eliminator thing or whatever. I was wondering why I didn't see Ethan Page on the.
So they're fighting on Dynamite on Wednesday.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because Starks just got beat up, right? Like,
he did, but he ended up winning that match, though. Yeah. So it's Starks and Page, but yeah, he did. He got that was weird. The whole what's his name? I forget his name now. Lance Archer.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What did you guys and clips might not have shown this, but very passionate promo from Britt, and then she still takes the L against Saraya. Like, I thought that was interesting booking. I thought for sure Britt was going over. I just watching that match, I was like, Britt should go over in this match, and then Paige or Saraya or whatever. Saraya, is it Saraya or Saraya? I don't know. Saraya. Then she gets. I was like, I was disappointed with that. I thought if they really wanted to build that feud, then Britt gets the win in there after that a passionate promo.
Yes, I got to give full props to Mr. Ritter here. He came up with a new name for the finisher for Saraya, the Saraya of Sunshine.
Nice. I was going to ask that because I was watching the highlights and I saw her do the page turner and they called it Nightfall, I think. And then she hit 2 rampages, and the way that they cut the highlights, it's just like, Saraya hit it, but they never said a name for it. And I'm sitting there, and I don't
think they did.
Did they name it? Because if they didn't,
I thought I heard them say it.
So to be fair, my feed cut out around the end of the match, so all I got sort of was like the ending kind of part. So I might have missed.
I thought I heard them say Rampage for one of them at least, but I could be wrong. Because
you could I mean, it's not. It could just be Rampage. It doesn't have to be Ramp. You know what I mean? Like there's no.
Yeah.
But that's pretty borderline. They might still get a cease and desist on that one if WWE's feeling shitty.
Listen, think about this. All right. If you got one signature move called the Nightfall, why not name your finisher the Soraya Sunshine? They're polar opposites. It works. It fits the gimmick.
Makes
It's got
sense.
your name in there.
It makes sense. Makes sense.
Yep.
Anyway, that was the only decision sort of on the booking side of things. I was like, I really wish Britt would have won that because that was such a good promo. But I guess
we got so much with Britt last night. She put Soraya over in her return after, like, you don't want someone to come back after all of that time and everything and then lose their very first match.
Yeah,
like I
true.
knew
That's true.
she was winning right out of the gate. And now that she's lost, because Britt is, despite the promo that she cut, still the heel. She came out, she stomped Toni Storm on the belt, helped Jamie get the win, or tried to assist, all of those things. So there's still going to be that. Now Toni and Soraya can get together, and they've got, Britt and Jamie. Jamie's got the title. I was more surprised that Britt helped Jamie get the title and didn't turn on Jamie than I was that she lost to Soraya.
Yeah.
Although I saw something on Twitter that was seems apropos. They were showing the Triple H Orton angle where he turned on him with the thumbs down. They said, "Here's Britt and Jamie tomorrow night,"
Nice.
which would be fitting. But yeah, even Britt was saying when she's attacking Toni, like this is Jamie's time. She's saying that kind of stuff. So either she's going to turn on her, which it seems like that's setting up, or here we go with this, because you got natural angles there. It works, Did you guys happen to hear or read about what Toni Storm said about the whole interim championship? And I know this has been kind of a hot button with a lot of people, even Sean Spears.
But they're still calling it that.
Yeah. So Sean Spears last night said this. He tweeted that this interim stuff is bullshit. You're a champion or nothing, right? And then Toni Storm's point, she had a passionate interview, I guess, saying like, I have to win this match because if I lose the interim championship, it doesn't even count.
Was she ever a champion?
Right. That's what she said. She said, I have to hold it until I fight the real champion, and then I can become the champion. So it doesn't even count, which I agree with. I think that's, and I don't agree that Toni Storm shouldn't be considered a champion. I agree that it makes it seem like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you don't go past, if you can't get 30 days or fight, you just drop the championship. This interim stuff, especially now, like how long has Thunder Rosa been gone?
It's been months, right?
So
where are they going with it? Where does it end?
Well, so with the interim stuff, I look at it like this. I have not personally viewed Toni Storm as any less of a champion than I did anyone else, despite the title. At the same time, when you keep exaggerating the idea that it's interim and pushing it in our face and reminding us that it's interim, like you said, it does take away from the prestige of her title run, because this entire time I go out there and I don't think about it until they just start.
Yes.
Oh, interim champion. I just look at Toni Storm as champion. And I was actually saying, I honestly didn't think Toni was going to lose because it's the interim title. And I figured we were waiting to get to Thunder Rosa and Kylie Fuller. I think I was tweeting with Mr. Warren Hayes, and she went in and she said, actually, I think it would be really cool to see the title change hands as an interim title, because that's not something you see very often. Everyone expects her to hold it until Thunder Rosa comes back and they get that, and she was right. Like, I thought about that and I was like, it is kind of cool, because then you do have all of these questions. Was Toni legitimately a champion? In our eyes, yes, but on paper, I don't know. And then what does that do for her story arc going forward if Toni can book one? As well as now Jamie is in that position, and can Jamie beat Thunder Rosa and hold on to that title and legitimize herself? Because she beat Toni, but Toni didn't beat Thunder Rosa to get that title. So Thunder Rosa still has that spot. So there's some interesting stuff going forward here.
You kind of got you could even have Jamie and Toni trade the title back and forth until Thunder comes back, and then you set up a 3-way or something like that. Who's the legit champion? But yeah, you're right. Does Toni book it the right way? Because Toni Storm now has quite the redemption story set up there, because she didn't truly have the championship. So yeah, it's interesting stuff.
But the more weird thing for me is they're not even touching, like they keep saying interim champion, but we're not getting any updates on Thunder Rosa. They're not even bringing her up in storyline. They're not mentioning her name really that much. Like they keep putting the interim in our face, but without sort of giving us the reason why. So you know what I mean? That's
And
the weird part to me.
the whole thing about Thunder Rosa and her injury and everything, also when it happened, seemed kind of like Tony Storm kind of alluded to maybe she wasn't really injured or not really injured bad enough to. And then, like you said, we haven't heard from her. And I was kind of expecting, like you said, at some point they'd just be like, "Yeah, she is now champion, Thunder Rosa," blah blah blah, and and it didn't come and it didn't happen. So I don't know what's going on with Thunder Rosa and her. I don't even know what her injury is.
I don't either.
Yeah, it's been like radio silence on that front for a while. I think it all seems really weird. I don't know, like I don't know this work shoot stuff. You can never put it past Tony, but I don't know. Something seems off with it, and like it doesn't even make sense from a storyline perspective. That's what's weird about it. Like you're not even wrapping it into a story, right? So anyway, we'll see where that goes. But
Jay, one last thing before we should get up back on the horror stuff. But just one last thing, and I don't know if you heard about this, Matt, but there was a serious FU CM Punk chant going on.
I was just going to bring that up. How about that for a CM Punk chant?
I know, and you had the Elite kind of encouraging it. But what are your thoughts on that? You're a Chicago guy. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, that's pretty quick to turn your back on old Mr. Punk, considering what he did for.
Before you answer, I also thought it was amazingly cool that they came out to Carry On Your to Wayward Son. Like the lyrics of that song are so fitting for the situation. Like, I thought that was amazing.
They were in Jersey, right?
Yeah. In the Prudential Center,
I don't expect anything less from people in Jersey. So that doesn't surprise me. There are a lot of people that are very mad at CM Punk, that cannot stand CM Punk, that never want to see CM Punk in AEW again and blame him for everything that happened.
Yeah.
I am not a CM Punk apologist. I don't think he was without fault or wrong. I'm not really on any side. I look at it this way. Like I said, it's about the characters and the people that I enjoy watching. And I am not an Elite guy. Like I came watching AEW to find out what everyone had been telling me about Kenny Omega. And
we're basically all in the same boat there. Yeah.
But Kenny Omega and the Bucks never, in my opinion, maybe the Bucks match wise was some stuff they did with like the Lucha Bros and things like that. But like they never really lived up to the hype that I had going in, especially Kenny, his run as champion. Like I'm like, he's good. He's really good, but he's not better than Seth Rollins. Like he's on par with a lot of the guys that I look at as top stars, but he's not like the best wrestler I've ever seen. I'm not blown away by this guy like the way everyone brings
definitely
it up.
Not the best in the world like he was touted, right?
Right.
Exactly. So I have never really been a big Elite guy. I made a lot of jokes during the whole thing about like, oh yeah, he went in there to save a dog, right? Like, get out of here. Like, of course I would say that too to get sympathy. Like, oh yeah, I just went in there to protect the dog, and then you find out the dog may or may have not gotten hurt anyway, so now he's terrible at doing that as well. I don't really take sides. I understand why everyone's mad at CM Punk. I personally think there's fault on both sides. I feel like Punk got way more of the heat than he deserved when it should have been pretty much divided evenly, because again, these guys are not just wrestlers, they're also EVPs. They are executives. They're expected to handle business at a different level than a CM Punk, who is a top tier talent. You are an executive in this company. You are held to a different standard. So even if he says, if you have a problem with me, come talk to me, you don't go to his locker room and try and handle business like that as you would a regular talent. That's not how they should have done it. So I feel like the heat wasn't properly divided amongst the fan base. A lot of it is, oh, well, I heard all of this about CM Punk when he was in WWE. And now a lot of people that were like, oh, no, I'm team CM Punk after his WWE stuff, they're like, well, no, Triple H and everyone that they were right about him the whole time. Like, you didn't say that 7 years ago, 8 years ago when this stuff happened. You were all about it. So I'm divided. I don't expect anything less from Jersey to chant "fuck you, CM Punk." Like, of course they did. You guys do your thing. I feel like there's some weird Jersey-Chicago rivalry that exists that I don't know why it does, but it does. So,
well, also, and I mean, maybe it solidifies the fact that he is gone, because the rumor is that he's done with them, and there's really bad ill will towards Punk from AEW. But like Kenny Omega encouraging it on the apron, also, like he actually was sort of going like along with the chant. It was just like, oh, that's probably not a good look for an EVP too, right? Like,
and the thing is, he's not going to get heat for that.
Like, I know, but he should.
If it was the other way around and CM Punk was out there and they were chanting "fuck you, Elite," and CM Punk, Twitter would be blowing
Yeah.
up with he's such a piece of shit, and he's this, and he's everything they said. He's toxic, he's terrible. Why would he encourage that? Well, he does that, and he's not going to get heat for it. The things that they do, because they're so loved by their fan base, because they're looked at as kind of like these wholesome, clean, like can't really do anything wrong, like super baby faces, when I really don't believe they are.
No,
right.
They're not going to get heat for encouraging that. They're like, yeah, CM Punk sucks. I love Kenny. Yeah, cheer. And it makes no sense to me, because it's always going to be that double standard. If it was the other way around, Punk would be destroyed for it. But because it's Kenny, and because they've painted this picture of themselves as like I feel like they're almost like youth pastors. And maybe that's why the fuck I don't like them. It's like I don't know. Like, I feel like they're better suited to be in a Christian rock band than wrestlers. That's what it is. But they painted this picture of themselves. So now everything they do, it's like, oh, they're doing it for the good of wrestling and the good of the people, and they're gonna save us. They're gonna crucify Kenny, and Kenny's gonna save our wrestling souls, or whatever the hell's going on. Like,
that's I think that's an awesome take. Like, so I just want to finish with one more point, but I'm gonna preface it by saying I too am not a CM Punk apologist. I actually was a fan, then wasn't a fan, and then I did pop for the return and all that stuff, and then. But my take on the press conference was he was completely unprofessional, especially with your boss sitting right next to you. That is inconceivable to me that it would never, like I've heard Eric Bischoff talk, like it would never happen anywhere else. Like Tony just sitting there and letting it happen is also a problem. Let's be real. That should have been cut off as soon as that was going on. He should have took the mic. That is your company, and he's disrespecting you in front of, anyway. So all of that was nonsense. However, I did hear something interesting. I think we might have talked about it on the show a few weeks ago, but there is rumor that Triple H reached out to his boys, FTR, and got the firsthand knowledge that no. This was not a Phil Brooks kind of initiated problem. And Phil was actually the one trying to be turn over a new leaf and be supportive in the locker room and sort of give the advice and be the mentor. And they were adamant that it was an elite thing where it's a toxic environment from the elite, where there's video game rooms and nobody will take kind of criticisms and constructive feedback and all of this nonsense. And that's why Triple H is actually interested in bringing him back, because like he got firsthand like intel as to what happened. Right. And I buy that. I actually do buy that. I really do.
See, and that is exactly what I'm talking about. So when all of this happened and everyone was, oh, fuck CM Punk. And I agree. He was very unprofessional. However, I feel like there's a lot of things that people kind of looked over. Like everyone's like, oh, well, he did this and he did that. And it's like, yes, but Hangman Page came out on TV and called him out first.
He did.
There are rumors of the Bucks and Kenny in interviews saying things about the situation with Colt Cabana and CM Punk, and prompting all of this stuff that he said in that press conference. I'm trying to let this stuff go and move on, and you guys won't let it die. You keep throwing it in my face. I've got that guy chanting, Colt Cabana stuff at me while I'm trying to cut a promo, which is why he flipped out on him, which probably not what he should have done, especially as a babyface. But like, he was trying to move on and be done with it, and Hangman and the Elite wouldn't let it go. And I preface this too. I'm like, Cody ended up doing the thing and not burning any bridges, but there were a lot of rumors that Cody had issues with the Elite before he left to Intention. Then Cody's like, no, you know what? Everything's cool. We're fine. Like,
but I don't think that's not by
professionalism from Cody is like, I'm not going to burn bridges over here. I'm going to go do my thing. But clearly there were some booking changes. There were some things going on that Cody was not happy with. Maybe the Young Bucks and Kenny are not the wholesome youth pastors you guys all think they are. Maybe they're kind of fucking toxic too. Like,
yeah,
it's a two-way street.
It'll be interesting to see where all this shit plays out, but I am of the firm belief now that people are like, oh, there's no way he's coming back to wrestling in general. I was like, I don't know. Like WWE is a machine. They just want money. If anyone can, we've talked about this before, but Triple H was the one who brought Bruno and Warrior back into the fold. You telling me he wouldn't do that for business? You telling me he wouldn't make CM Punk an offer because it's best for business, and that legit would be best for business on some sort of like per appearance like Lesnar type deal or Edge deal or something? Hell yeah, he would. Like, he doesn't give a shit about what happened in the past, and that's all water on the bridge as far as he's but it does make sense that he was trying to get the real story, and that that would be, and if he trusts FDR, which he probably does, which we said more hilarious that he's talking to FDR regularly than the story coming out, but that would be kind of another thing. But anyway, we'll end it on that. But I won't be shocked, honestly, if he does show up in the summer or something for some huge show. BC, I don't know. It looks like you want to say something.
I'll just add one last point. So this will probably be the last part that I talk in here. but Jay can confirm this. I am the least likely person to stand up for CM Punk.
Absolutely.
Honestly, I can't stand CM Punk. I'm sorry. I think he's caused more harm to wrestling over the last 7 years when he's been gone. He could have easily just stepped up on social media and said, hey guys, I get it. You like chant my name, but enough. You're ruining pay-per-views. You're ruining pushes for people. You're ruining wrestling, period, by doing this. But to me, I don't necessarily think, I'm with you, Matt. I don't necessarily think he's in the wrong completely in this. He's in the wrong in the way he handled that press conference, but Jay hit the nail on the head. Vince McMahon would have throttled him by the throat and shut off the mic immediately before that got anywhere.
Cleared the room, yeah.
The EVPs were wrong in the way they handled everything. And the other thing is, you know what, wrestling fans, for 7 fucking years, you chanted this guy's name and asked for him back when you knew what kind of a person he was. You don't deserve the right to get to now tell him F you.
Yeah.
You got what you asked for. You know, so that's all I'm going to say on that. And I'm not a CM Punk guy, that's for sure. No. But you know, that's I at this point now, after last night, I actually do want to see him show up in WWE, even if it's for one night. And I would never have said that ever in my life. So, yeah,
it'll be interesting. All right, let's kind of move on to a little more horror talk here, and it's kind of doubling back to where we kind of came in with the passions. But Matt, where do you think this correlation or this, because I don't think it's just us. I think this is something I see all the time. Like, why are wrestling and horror fans connected? Like, why do you think there's this natural crossover? I mean, just look at Jericho showing up in Terrifier 2 and all the podcasts he does. Jericho's a huge horror fan, and like, he's not the only one. I know there's a lot of wrestlers out there, pro wrestlers too, that it just seems to be this like connective tissue between pro wrestling and horror. Like, what is it, man? I don't know. I was trying to think about it myself. I don't have an answer, but those two fandoms seem to cross over more than any other fandoms. I don't know what it is.
I might actually have an answer for you. So I've actually thought a lot about this too, but not necessarily in this vein. More so in the vein of like my fandom. So I personally have gone on record and said that the new wave of horror, what are they calling it? I'm blanking out here. The elevated horror, the
A24 stuff, like the
A24 stuff, the Hereditaries, It's not for me. It's not what I enjoy. I've watched, you know, I cannot stand It Follows. It is probably my least favorite horror movie of all time. I was so angry coming out of that, and I have ranted about it nonstop. But like, that stuff isn't for me. Where I do actually like Get Out. I like Us. I like the stuff that Jordan Peele does. But a lot of the other stuff that everyone, they say it's horror for people who like a higher art form of entertainment, as if it's better than the horror that we love. And that's how a lot of people look at wrestling too. Is wrestling is kind of, even though it's become more mainstream and all this, it's always been kind of considered this like lowbrow entertainment sport. And horror is also kind of considered like this lowbrow form of movie entertainment. And I think that's kind of, if that's what you enjoy and you don't care about people, you know, looking down on you from the tip of their nose, and you just enjoy what you enjoy, these forms of entertainment have a lot of similarities and a lot of connected. I mean, we talked about my favorite characters being guys like The Undertaker, Kane, and The Fiend. And The Undertaker will tell you that he got, you know, the sitting up and the things that he did from watching the Halloween movies and, you know, the movements and all that from Michael Myers and from Jason and studying these films and things like that. So there's crossover there, but I feel like it's a form of entertainment that is very similar in the way that stories are told and what you're there for. You're there for the thrills and the chills and, you know, a little bit of character development, but you're not looking for anything, you know, for the most part, thought-provoking or anything like that. You're there to just have a good time. That's why I watch wrestling. That's why I love horror, because I can sit down and I can pop these movies on at any time. Horror is my comfort. Like, if I'm having a bad day, I'm coming home and I'm popping in, Halloween 2018, and I'm just going to sit back and I'm going to watch Michael do his thing and I'm going to enjoy it. Or Cabin in the Woods, or 2013's Evil Dead, which I absolutely love, and a lot of people
Love that
don't.
too.
But
Yep, love
it's
it too.
fucking fantastic. So these are the things like where you might come home and you might, I had a shitty day. I want to watch like
Gone with the Wind.
I was gonna go for like The Hangover or
Seinfeld or something
Old
like
School,
that.
or like I want a comedy to make me laugh, like, and that's fine. Like, do that. For me, I'd much rather just kind of like through a passive aggressive way sit down and watch something that's gonna get my anger out by watching somebody get slaughtered or watching people go out and do a ring and put on a show and beat the crap out of each other. Like that's, so I think that's kind of where that connection is there's that, in that it's almost kind of the same medium of entertainment in a way.
Yeah, I think that's you know what, and when you were saying it, I was like, fuck, you're dead on. Like that, they are so similar in that sense, and throw in the elements of, we get a little bit of the comedy just stick with both of them too, right? Like every good, really good horror, like it's not my favorite, but Part 6, Jason Lives, it's widely accounted, well, I don't know if that's the right term, but like fans do look at that one as one of the best in the franchise. I don't think it is the best, but it is a really good flick. But they took that one a little more comedic, right? That was sort of, they took a little more campy, quote unquote, right? But so we get that in wrestling too, where we get a little bit of that like comic relief too throughout the story. So I think that's really good. Those parallels are really, really spot on. And to your point, it's not like what's all the Christopher Nolan movies and stuff where like I have to like sit there intently like watching to make sure I didn't miss or slip, like, oh my God, what was that character saying? Or like even like Game of Thrones, for Christ's sake, I was lost half the show for Game of Thrones because I can't keep up with the character names and all stuff. So that's a good parallel too. And like we never, it's very on the surface writing, right? I mean, like we don't have to worry about the underlying tones, apart from the Jordan Peele stuff, which I am not a giant fan of, but like most horror movies, like especially my genre, like slasher, like your favorite too, we don't have to worry about that. There's no subliminal meanings. There's no nothing. It's like right in your fucking face. This is what's going on. And wrestling's the same way, I guess. And to the most part, I mean, BC can probably recount a bunch of good storylines that had some sort of undertones of other things, and probably, but for the most part, they put that shit in our face too. Like here's the two guys, who you're supposed to cheer, who you're supposed to hate. Here's the story. They're going to fight over this. Boom. Let's go. You know what I mean? Like that's where it is.
Yeah, and even with some of the horror that we grew up loving, like there are, for the time period where the movies were made, there are societal undertones and there's everything.
But, absolutely. I don't mean that they're completely devoid of that, but on this,
as you were going to say, you can enjoy these movies, not have been like, if you were not a part of that generation, you can still sit down and enjoy these movies at face value. Like it's not the movies and what you get out of them is dependent on understanding some deeper meaning.
Right.
Like you can just watch it and it goes on. And then if you live through the things that, they're kind of highlighting or mimicking or trying to work into the story, and you understand it, you may understand it on a different level, but it doesn't take away from the enjoyment of a slasher franchise like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, so on and so forth.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, just where you were mentioning to put the wrestling perspective on, Jay, it's like Jim Ross always talks about, as an announcer, laying out for a little bit and not jumping ahead and telling the people what the story is. You let the audience figure it out themselves. And it's the same thing like you're talking about with the horrors. You shouldn't have to sit there and do quantum physics to figure out what the hell's going on in a movie. Right. It should be pretty simple that you can see what's coming without actually giving away everything at the same time. And wrestling's supposed to be that same way. Anytime you get into like crazy, way off the reservation storylines, you're just lost the audience. They just can't keep up. It should be simple enough that they can see what's coming, but they still get a bit of a surprise at the end with it.
Yeah, and it's such a good parallel, and I think that I think you just answered. I didn't expect an answer, but I think you did answer why that thing. And I think your point about like people who like both just don't give a shit about what people think. I think that's also a big deal. Like I say it all the time, like I'm a proud fan of both. Like I don't make excuses. I'll tell people, like, I know there's some wrestling fans out there that'll be like a little coy about it and they won't really say, but I'm like, no, screw you. Like this is my passion. You know what I mean? And same thing with horror is like, no, I embrace that shit. Like that's to me, it's like such a, when you can, like, this is how I look at it. And pro wrestling is its own kind of massive fandom and so, but when a sub genre of a genre, you know what I mean, can be so massive, like even just slashers in the horror, like that is in and of itself people's favorites. But just like when you can be like most people will say they're fans of movies. They, oh, well, like I like movies, like I'm a movie guy or whatever. Like they don't say I'm a comedy guy, you know what I mean? Or they don't say I'm a drama guy or whatever. Like we have a fandom that says, no, I am a horror fan. Like that is my thing. I guess sci-fi is pretty up there too, I guess. So that would probably be the other one, which I do enjoy sci-fi as well. But and to be fair, there's a lot of crossover there, right? When you got Alien and Predator and all that stuff, like it's I mean, it's not, I guess you have your true Star Wars and all that stuff, which doesn't have a horror element. But anyway, so I just think that element of unapologetically loving the two things, I think that's a really good take as well. I think that's a good point.
You don't put your podcast on PornHub if you're worried about what people are going to think.
Fair enough.
It is what it is.
Fair enough.
I walked out 7 days a week. You will either find me in either sometimes my own merch, but generally it'll either be a horror t-shirt or like today I was rocking Shotzi Blackheart as I went to go see Black Panther and do everything. Like, and there are people, I'll go out and they'll be like, oh, NWO, I used to watch wrestling. I'm like, oh, I still do, and I've got a podcast. And if you want to listen to it, you can.
Check it out.
Whatever. Like, they're like, I loved it back in the 90s when it was good. I'm like, and it's still good, and I still watch it. Like, you don't think so cool? Like, that's on you.
This is a weirdly relatable story. So me and my buddy go out. Not BC wasn't there, but it was me and my other buddy who was also a fan of both horror and wrestling, and we go see Halloween Ends, which we will talk. Which this is a bit of a segue, but
a segue, as they say.
Yeah. We're about to talk about that, but we go to the theater and watch it, and there was another group. It might have been his family. I mean, it was kind of a probably guy our age, and then kind of younger kids maybe, like, but like still of age to watch Halloween Ends or whatever. And they all had Bloodline shirts, right? And the mom or like his mom or something, they all had Bloodline shirts, right? So, and it was in an IMAX, which is a smaller. You guys, you guys have IMAX stuff, so it's like a little smaller theater. And we literally sat there, dude, for like 5 minutes. We were in the back row and we just had our finger and our hand up like this for about 5 minutes, waiting for them to acknowledge, like to turn around. Like we didn't say anything. We just held our hand up with the one. And then finally they didn't turn around, which sucked. But then on the way out, we saw them again. And we just kind of like blurred out, "We the ones." Acknowledge.
There you go.
It was just hilarious. But like that would have, and it did at the end. They did like, they're like, yeah. But like again, in a horror movie, you got a wrestling kind of passionate, like people who like so casual fans don't wear wrestling t-shirts. Like we all know that, right? I mean, like you're not going to go out in public with a wrestling fan. I wear them 24/7. I mean, BC knows this is pretty much my whole wardrobe, but so you know that this person is an actual fan if they're all wearing Bloodline t-shirts, right? I mean, so anyway, that's why we. But I thought that was kind of a funny story. So
my wife hates it, by the way, because so she told me that one of the reasons why she married me was because when she looked at me with my bald head, my beard, and all of the horror movie tattoos, she thought I was going to be unapproachable for most people. Like most people are going to look at me and just be like, no, we're going to leave. But it's the exact opposite. Like old ladies at the store will come up to me and just, "Excuse me, sir." And it baffles her. But my arms I've got Leatherface here. I've got Pinhead here. Like my arms are covered in horror movie tattoos. And then I've got wrestling t-shirts on. So whether it's a wrestling fan or a horror fan or both, everywhere we go, someone is stopping me. "Oh, hey, I saw your tattoos, blah, blah, blah." And then they'll talk to me about that. And she's just like, "Fuck, I want to go home. Like, I don't want to talk to this guy for 20 minutes, this and that." So she hates it. But yeah, no. Yeah. You see someone out, that's what you do. Absolutely. Like you see someone that shares that fandom, you want to, hey, I'm a fan too. Like that's what we do.
And it's almost like the community in and of itself, right? I mean, that's what's so cool. But for them to be at Halloween Ends, it was just like, oh, this is too fitting. This is great. So speaking of Halloween Ends, I want to get into the David Gordon Green sort of trilogy. So you are, I'm sure, and I missed it. I unfortunately missed it, but I really am. One, I'm curious on your take on ends, so I want to get your take as a really knowledgeable horror fan, where you came at Halloween ends, and sort of, and part of that sort of want to tackle. Are you like me, and that opinion is somewhat changed over watching it multiple times? So I think I think I've watched it 3 or 4 times now, and sort of had a bit of a different appreciation on different times I watch it. So first I want to get your take on ends, but then I also sort of want to get your take on the trilogy itself, and if you think it held up to the hype one, and as a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a concise package, right, for the trilogy, like as a storytelling device for all three sort of put together. So
Okay.
so give me your take on that.
I don't think I'm going to break any new ground here, unfortunately. I am with you. I went into ends, and whereas when we did the review, there were people on the panel who were not a fan of it, that did not like it coming out of it. There were people that really liked it, and then some of us were kind of. I enjoyed ends when I walked out of it. It was not the movie that I went in expecting. And I think a lot of people can say that. I don't think anyone was really expecting that movie when they went into the theater and sat down and watched it. That's not where we thought the story was going. However, my only big criticism from Halloween Ends was I kind of wish that they had gone all the way and not killed off Corey and let Corey kind of live on after Michael. I feel like it was kind of a cop out by having us watch an entire movie of Corey. And I've watched it 2 or 3 times since then, and I still feel the same way. I actually started to really kind of enjoy the story that they were telling with Corey, and I was getting behind him, and I was interested as how Michael's power transferred to him and all of these things that were going on. And then in the end, while I get the maniacal villain-esque, if I can't have her, nobody can, but I'm going to do it in a way where she finds me dead and she's going to hate you, as opposed to I'm going to kill her so that nobody can have her sort of like twist to it. Michael coming in and killing him, it still, to me, as much I enjoy it as its own thing, but it still to me almost makes everything leading up to that point kind of feel like a waste of time. Like, you really had me watch all of an hour plus of this movie getting invested in this character and leading up to just murdering him and then ending the franchise or the trilogy at that point. I really love this trilogy. It's so the original, the OG timeline 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 is and probably will always be my favorite because it's why I fell in love with it. Like, it's just one of those things where they do these things, but you love them because you grew up, you've watched them so many times. It's almost a part of you at this point. You know, I can recite those movies word for word, scene for scene. When we did the show, when I do these shows for Getting Off, normally I have notes on my phone for Smackin' It Raw. I never have notes. It's part of me. With this trilogy, the first movie I still think is my favorite. I think 2018's Halloween was damn near perfect. It was everything I could have wanted coming out of and restarting a franchise. I really enjoyed Halloween Kills. The patient, the mental patient scene in the hospital and the mob, which kind of emphasized the stuff that they did in Halloween 4, where, you know, they went and was it 4? I think it was either 4 or 5. It might have been 5. I think it was 5 where Michael, it was 5 where Michael killed the entire police station, and then they went and they talked to people at the bar, and they're like, oh no, it was 4 because they came at the end.
Yeah, it was 4. They went hunting for him. Yeah.
Where they started, you know, a mob. They're like, oh, you know, you started a mob and this and that. So like they were kind of playing off that idea of starting a mob in Haddonfield and doing a little bit of an homage to that. But I watched it on Peacock because of COVID. I did not go to theaters to watch Halloween Kills. So that part almost kind of took me out of it didn't feel like it was part of the movie I was watching. I enjoy ends, like I said, kind of as its own thing, almost in the way a lot of people enjoy Halloween 3. Like, they realize it's not part of the franchise, its own thing. It's gotten a cult following. There's a lot of really good stuff in Halloween Ends. It's not the way I wish they had finished the trilogy. It is not, even for the movie that gave us, the way that I personally would have liked to see it play out. but I'm not mad at it. I don't hate the movie. I think that they did a lot of really cool. They took risks, and I appreciate taking risks. And what they did was a big risk in this movie. Doing it the way they did. I literally in theaters the first time I watched it, it was 45 minutes into the movie, and I looked over at my wife, and I'm like, "Where the fuck is Michael Myers?"
Yeah, yeah, and I think that that's kind of the consensus. So, it's weird because I think we're pretty much on the same take on this. Like, the only thing I think we differ. So I agree, it was definitely not the movie we wanted, maybe as fans. And it was definitely David Gordon Green's almost like love story to like sort of Season of the Witch, which he has said has been a thing, right? And I think I didn't catch it at first. Did you catch the Season of the Witch font for the opening?
Oh, absolutely. So after I watched it, I a buddy of mine who was going to go see it, I was sitting there and I was talking to him. I was like, listen, because he's a huge Halloween fan as I am. I'm like, I don't want to give you any spoilers. I will tell you this is not the movie that you're expecting to go see, and you are going to notice that right from the opening credits if you pay attention. And I even looked at my wife in the theater and I looked at I'm like, that's the Season of the Witch font. Because I noticed like Halloween Kills kind of followed the Halloween 2 font. The original, 2018 had the original Halloween opening font. So I noticed those things. And I looked at her, I'm like, I don't know what that means, but this is going to be interesting. So we'll see where this goes. So yeah, I did. And I did warn my buddy. And I think having the heads up, he received it probably a little better than he would have going in and expecting something else. So that also helps as well. As it's like, listen, this is not the movie you think it's going to be going into it. And you're like, all right, you just kind of go in open, like, all right, I don't have any expectations at this point. You enjoy it more. And same thing with watching it multiple times. Now that you've seen it, and you kind of know what it is, and you're not caught off guard essentially by, okay, this is not what I thought I was coming to see. You can start appreciating and enjoying everything. One of my favorite scenes of the movie is the DJ kill. Still to this day, it is one of my favorite kills in the franchise. The tongue flopping on the record and all of that, like fantastic.
And there's apparently a 4K version out already that has a bunch of extended scenes, not as much as people were hoping for. Like we didn't get the alternate version. So the rumor is there was like multiple sort of movies made, and this is kind of the end one we got. But yeah, so back to my sort of take on it around the David Gordon Green sort of love stories. Like he obviously went into this saying, okay, it was almost a swerve, right? I mean, I think he did sort of go into this as a swerve. My only beef, and I'm with you, I thought it was on the surface, I liked it. I walked up and saying, okay, wasn't exactly what I thought, but it was good. We did get the Michael Laurie thing. I don't think it was long enough, but I think we did get some satisfaction there. And then they fucking didn't fuck around with the end. I mean, like pretty much they gave us the ends, right? I mean, my only beef is that 2018 was just so good, and you touched on it earlier. It was like everything we wanted. It was the antithesis of the Rob Zombie Halloween 2, which I didn't hate the Rob Zombie flicks. To be fair, I thought the first one was pretty good, and the second one went way the fuck off the rails. But it actually, when I look at it again, I can get behind it a little bit. I mean, there's still a lot out there, but no, not for you. But 2018 gave us everything we wanted, and kind of built that oh my god, yes, here we go again. Can't wait for the next one, right? Then to me, Kills kind of shot it back down for me because like it was COVID and we didn't get in the theater and all that stuff, and we did get to watch it in different means, but I just thought it was so chaotic. Like it just was so all over the place. The pacing was insane to me. Like and again, I'm a fan, so I didn't say, oh, I hated that, because I didn't hate it. I was I guess more so I was confused coming out of Kills. I was like, where are we going with this? I don't know. And you brought up 4. I thought they tried to do it better than 4, but 4 did it better. Like 4 did the mob mentality better than they did, because it did seem, now there was some amazing fucking kills in that movie. So like that's why I still enjoyed it. Like the opening sequence alone makes the movie amazing. But to me, I just was like, okay, 2018 was awesome. Got the story. We knew where it was going. And then like I guess I was just confused coming out of Kills. And then coming out of Ends, I was like, okay, makes sense. They wrapped it all up. It does feel like a story, but was it the story I wanted? That was the question sort of I came out of Ends. And then if you look at them all four, I don't think so. We were talking about timelines earlier. I don't think, in my opinion, I think that the 2018 Kills and Ends has to stand on its own for timeline, because I don't think if you take one in there, which that's what obviously we were supposed to take one,
Right.
and then those three, it's not needed. To me, it doesn't, there's nothing added by going back to the original and saying, okay, apart from 2018 getting some of the stuff, right? Like that they needed to build off, but I just don't think it works as a 4. It just doesn't.
No. Now, so listen, with Kills, one of my favorite things about Kills was actually brought up to me by one of the Young Kings Wrestling co-hosts, Reek Havoc. He's got his own show, Havoc Hour. That's where, before I started getting off, we would go and we would do all of our horror talk. There's a bunch of stuff under the Havoc Hour that we have, and then his schedule got chaotic, which is why I decided I wanted to do Getting Off so I could just do shows when I was ready to do them. Neither here nor there. He's great, and he noticed something that I didn't even notice that really. So in the flashback sequence in Halloween Kills, when Michael's in the house and he grabs the cop with the rope and strangles him. In the very first movie, when Lori and Annie pull up and they're smoking pot and they see Sheriff Brackett, and then, you know, the hardware store and the alarm's going off. If you listen to him, he goes, oh, it was just some kids, you know, they stole some knives, some rope, and some masks. You never saw in any of the movies the rope that was supposedly stolen. Michael never did anything with it. And then they took that and they put it here. And it's like, if you're really into the franchise and you're analyzing everything because you love it so much, beat for beat, and you see that, it's like, that's the rope from the first movie that they talked about. And the way that they did the entire flashback sequence to make it feel like it was something
great.
From
it
was insane. So like I said, that, along with the reason I love Halloween 6, is, in my opinion, throughout the franchise, outside of maybe Rob Zombie's, which I, again, enjoy the first, I cannot redeem the second. And we can maybe talk about that in a second. It's the most badass that Michael Myers is in any of the movies in the franchise. Halloween 6, Michael Myers is a beast. You don't see that level of brutality and just unmitigated badassery from Michael Myers until you get to Halloween Kills, where he is just wrecking everybody and then takes an ass whooping and still gets up and wrecks everybody. And again, it's Kane, it's the Undertaker, it's these characters from wrestling that I love, where you'll watch Kane get beat down and then get up and just waste an entire Royal Rumble of guys before he's eliminated, like with trash cans and all of these things in 2000. Like, that is what I'm looking at, and that's why I'm like, this is the shit that I love. This is why the mental patient committing, you know, unaliving himself and all of that, and the pressures of society and turning on people and making all of that A24-esque elevated horror element that they brought into it. I understand why they did. It's fine. It took me out of it a little bit. Like, I'm fine going back and watching it now, and it's part of the story, and it is what it is, and I get it, but it's not what I was there for. Everything outside of that and all of the little bits that they added in, all of the homages, all of the different things that you see. And like I said, the rope, which I was just like, that is so fucking cool. That tiny little thing from the first movie that nobody probably ever really thought about, or was really like, oh, well, whatever happened to that rope? Like, there it is. That's what he did with the rope. And now we know where it went and what happened with it. So that's why I kind of hold Kills a little bit higher up, is things like that. The two movies through, so I enjoy Resurrection for what it is. It's kind of like, you know, it's like watching a Danhausen match, or like watching an Orange Cassidy match before they kind of started taking a little more seriously. Like, I can go in and I can watch it and enjoy it because I know it is what it is. Busta Rhymes is gonna spin kick Michael Myers and I'm gonna have a laugh, and it is what it is. Like, I'm fine with it. The two movies in the franchise that I rank the lowest, Halloween 2 from Rob Zombie is bottom of the barrel for me. He went, this is Bray Wyatt being Sister Abigail levels of weird, going into a feud with Finn Balor where he dresses himself up like a pumpkin. Like that, really off the rails, just stuff that, as much as I love this, I just can't get behind it. And then, even though it's part of my favorite timeline, Halloween 5 is just the absolute shits to me.
Only because it's a bit of a mess, right? I mean, it's
a
just like
huge
the
mess.
director was the wrong choice. It was just, yeah.
It's a huge mess.
But even 6, so I'm curious, even 6 with the ending that they gave us is still one of your favorites?
Yeah. Absolutely.
As opposed to the ending that we didn't get that you might have probably seen or heard about.
Are you talking about the stuff with the producer's cut?
Yeah.
I have both.
You have the producer's cut?
Yes. So what I was going to say, when you were talking about 2018 before technical difficulties, and you were talking about the other endings, it took us a very long time for them to release the producer's cut. But when they released a full-on Blu-ray box set, it came with the producer's cut, and I got it, and I have it both physically and digitally. So I have the producer's cut. I have watched the producer's cut. I talk about it in Getting Off because they basically tell you that Steven is Michael Myers and Jamie's child. I believe I was like, it's their incest baby, but maybe, Michael doesn't do that thing. So maybe like there was a nurse that milked Michael Myers. And now when we talk about masturbation on our show, I refer to it as milking Michael Myers. That is now a thing. So you are welcome for that. I want a shirt that says I milked Michael Myers. Like neither here nor there. But yeah, so I've seen both. There's so much cool shit that they took out of the producer's cut, including the kill of Strode.
The dad.
The dad.
The electrocution one.
The way that they do it in the producer's cut is way more toned down for whatever reason. And then there's a lot of stuff in the hospital that doesn't take place in the producer's cut because they're filling it in with more backstory and lore and Celtic rune stuff.
And maybe I'm mixing the two. Is the one I'm vividly remembering is the one where he goes down and Michael's standing next and they're doing the ritual in the basement and is that the producer's cut?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So yes, right. Okay, that must have been the one I just watched, that's what's throwing me off. I was thinking that was the original.
So Halloween 6's producer's cut ends with Michael stuck in runes, and then Dr. Loomis goes back to finish the job. He finds the man in black there in Michael's clothes. Michael has somehow gotten out of the room
in the hallway, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas the original ends with them being chased by Michael into a room. Michael gets injected in the neck by Tommy Doyle, played by Paul Rudd, with like a 6 needles of God knows what was in there, some sort of horse tranquilizer or poison or whatever. They escape, and then we come back. We just find Michael's mask laying there and the bundle of needles next to it, and he is still alive and gone. And you hear Dr. Loomis scream, and that is the end of Dr. Loomis, who I absolutely love and is one of my favorite characters. And honestly, give me a year or two and let a little gray grow in, and I am going to be Dr. Loomis every year for Halloween because he looks just like my grandfather, and I think I can pull it off. So.
I think you absolutely can pull it off. Okay, so that's why that's the most recent version of 6 that I watched. So that's making more sense because I was flipping them in my head. So yeah, no, I would agree. And I am with you. I think that's a good wrap up of the story. But what's your take on? And I know I want to move on to another one too, but just this is one of my favorite franchises too. I go back and forth between Friday the 13th and Halloween as my sort of go-to franchise. I think they're pretty much up there equally for me because I both of those iconic characters I think are the best villains. And I know people will argue Freddy and all that stuff, but he's way too campy for me and too comedy for me. So that's why I'm a Michael Jason guy. But where was I going with this? So H2O, it always gets like applauded and up there. But then like I watched it or maybe was watching clips of it again. I'm like, man, this feels so much more safe. Like it almost felt like it took you out of the franchise a little bit because it was that like Scream late 90s version of Kevin Williamson. You know what I mean? Like that. Did you get that take too?
Oh, absolutely.
But it gets heralded as like one of the best, right?
Well, yeah. And I think that's more so of like the masks were terrible in that. And
Yeah.
there's even a mask that has like no feet that doesn't even look like a Michael Myers mask that
And then
they
they
have
digitally, they
a
did a
scene.
digital
Yeah,
one. Yeah.
it's fucking terrible. I think so. Obviously, it was 20 years after the first movie. It was 2 years since, or 3 years since we had seen Michael, and now it's his return. It is the return of Laurie Strode after everything that happened in 4, 5, and 6. And I think that's kind of why it gets heralded the way it did. Plus, for the time that it came out, it was a perfect movie for that time. It was very much a almost PG-esque version, or PG-13-esque version of Halloween. It had Josh Hartnett in it. It was very much of the time.
Yeah.
It is also very low on my list. I actually would rather watch Resurrection, because Resurrection has a very interesting premise behind it, despite some of the execution. It's something that we had never really seen in a horror movie, where reality TV is big. So we're going to take this big thing and we're going to bring it into this franchise, and we're going to send these people into the home of Michael Myers, and we're going to stage everything like it's a reality show. But what if Michael was actually still living in the house and actually shows up and start, like, to me, it's a great premise. It's really cool. It
just didn't
has
get
its
executed.
issues
Yeah.
in execution, and even some of the editing is terrible. And that's a whole podcast we get into.
Yeah.
H2O is very low on my list. It's I forget what the fuck I called it, but it's the Dawson's Creek of the Halloween franchise, essentially. Like,
that's a good take. And I remember at the time I was like, that was fucking awesome, like all this stuff. But then now I go back and look at it, I'm like, ugh, I would take zombies over, like the original Zombie over that one for sure.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so back to the zombie thing, I think maybe the reason why I'm looking back on 2 a little more fondly is I watched a sort of there's another guy I watch on YouTube, and I can't remember the name, but he goes into like sort of the backstory. It's almost like a behind the music of movies, right? And he does a lot of horror movies. He's like Friday 13th 1 and 2. And anyway, he did one on Zombies 2. First of all, I guess he didn't even want to do a second one. He didn't want to do a sequel. They kind of pushed it. They pushed it. He said, fine, whatever. And then he wanted to go in a different route, and they pushed it back. And like, so there was a lot of like that stuff happening on set. And apparently a lot of changes and a lot of like production issues. And so I kind of look at it like, okay, maybe it wasn't what we were supposed to get in the first place. So I do give directors and sort of producers and filmmakers a bit of a benefit of the doubt, because that happens all the time, as you know.
Yep.
Like, we're constantly getting like not the versions we were supposed to get. But you're right. I mean, it's so out to lunch with like the white horse and all that stuff, and just like that ruins it. However, I watched it just the first half again recently, and I was like, it's actually kind of it until you get to that stuff with him, the obligatory Sherry Moon zombie role.
Yeah.
Like, until you get there, that first 30 minutes, 40 minutes is quite well paced. And it's kind of
absolutely.
Good. Yeah, it's good.
You
But
take the
overall,
dream sequence where they're mimicking the hospital sequence that is 2 and everything. And it's like, this is fucking awesome. And then you get out of that, and okay, now Michael's kind of like a hobo with half a mask, but he's still messing people up. And then the mom shows up. So for anyone who's a wrestling fan who's not really big into horror, and I want to H2O real quick. If Halloween 1 and 2 is The Undertaker, essentially, it is the original the character that is Michael Myers. We'll consider that The Undertaker. We'll say 4, 5, and 6 are Kane. It's a character that we're kind of familiar with, but it's a little bit different. H2O is Abyss. There are people out there who absolutely love Abyss and TNA and everything he does, and they think it's great.
It's true.
But it's kind of also like, it feels like a cheap ripoff of what you've seen from
that's a good take.
What came before it. So
very good. I think, you know what, let's end it right there, because that was the best take of the night right there. So let's, like, before we get onto one last wrestling topic before we sign off, give me and I'm genuinely interested to get these takes from you. Some of the best sleepers of 2022 for you, slashers preferably, but anything horror related. Where should I direct it? And I try and scour the internet for all of these things too. So I may have already heard of it, but I'm interested to get your take on something I need to check out.
Honestly, I don't know that I've seen anything really. So I watched Smile last night, and for what it was, Smile was fun.
I heard. I haven't watched it yet, but I have it. But yeah,
there's a good jump scare in there that I didn't expect that got me. It's not. It reminds me of a little bit of It Follows, but like it makes a little more sense than It Follows, and you kind of figure out what's going on in the movie. Whereas It Follows just kind of, you went and you watch this movie and you're like, okay, what the fuck did I just watch? Nothing happened outside the first 20 minutes of the movie, and then they never explained it, and then it just ended.
they just leave it.
Haunted STD, like I don't get it. So Smile was fun. Barbarian, I watched. That was interesting.
Okay, I have that on my list too. Yeah, I have it.
It did not go where I thought it was going to go, but I walked out of it enjoying it. It was cool. Obviously, Scream 5 from earlier this year, I really enjoyed. Was a cool take on Scream and everything that they did there. And then you saw Halloween Ends. I'm trying to think of what else I've watched this year that I'd be like, you really need to.
Well, maybe I'll flip this and give you one. So, have you watched X yet?
I have watched X. I have not watched Pearl though.
I just watched Pearl, and again, it's A24, and for those fans who know, you just know. But I liked X better, but Pearl was interesting. Like it was definitely I watched it only because there's going to be, I guess, a sequel that they're already producing now to X, which will be connected to Pearl, obviously still. So I think check it out. It was good. They're as much as people do like to shit on A24 style, it's like so good. Like they make movies really well. You know what I mean? And it's like, and there's a couple good gore scenes in there too, but it's very artsy. I mean, it's definitely what you think it is. It's not over the top.
You could not have sold me on X, because I watched the trailer and I'm like, this reminds me of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but if they were making a porno instead of going, wherever they were headed
to a concert or whatever.
Yeah. So I was like, they're making a porno, and it's kind of like, so that's why I went in watching it. It wasn't exactly like that, because it also kind of reminded me of The Visit with the old people. Yeah. And I enjoyed The Visit for an M. Night Shyamalan movie. Like I enjoyed The Visit. So like I was good with X. I enjoyed it. I want to see Pearl because of it. As far as A24, short sidetrack. Are you aware that Friday the 13th is coming back?
I was going to bring it up too. Yeah,
I was going to. Yeah, okay.
Crystal Lake. Yeah, I'm tempering. What What am I trying to say? Like I'm trying to keep my excitement to a bit of a modest level, only because of that factor. However, I have been waiting for this goddamn lawsuit to end for it feels like 20 years now, and for all this to get settled, and the fact that they came back as a combination already, first project, that to me is a good sign that actually there isn't going to be any issues with, well, we own this and we own that. They're like, no, we're going to make money. And I also heard the only reason it's not going to be a film right away is because of all the international rights still being tied up, and there's a whole clusterfuck of who owns what as far as film rights, but it's so easy for them to just do a TV show, which will be based in the States, which has everything already agreed, right?
I don't need a movie though. Like, don't get me wrong.
You're right.
If they make one, I want one. But everything that they've done, like Peacock, Universal has done with Chucky, has been fantastic. These first two seasons, I've enjoyed the shit out of it. And like I said, I'm a fan of mythology. So if you can give me 10-hour-long episodes where you really get into what's going on, because this is going to be a prequel. So now we're going to, maybe some of the ideas that I brought up in my Slasherverse that are canon. If you talk to the director of Jason Goes to Hell, where he's like, listen, I put the Necronomicon in here to give a reason for why. And, Pamela went to, like, all of this stuff that I got from that movie that kind of helped me build my Slasherverse. If that is part of this, because it is canon in the franchise, because it is part of and we dig into that and we see some of these things, or how dark Pamela's depression got after, like, I'm interested in all that. And the more you can give me, the more I'm for. So absolutely give me a TV show over a 2.5-hour movie where you've got to cut everything down, like they did with the remake, where they tried to take 3 movies and cram it into one, which I still enjoyed the remake.
I'm a massive fan of the remake. 2009 is up there very high in my list. I thought it was super good, and I thought it got way more criticism and way more fan negativity than it really deserved. And that was even a different time back in 2009. But yeah, a huge, massive fan of 2009. That's
That
one of my favorites.
wrong side. That picture of Jason right there is from the remake that
Yep.
I found an artist did. So yeah,
Nice.
no, big fan.
So yeah, the A24 thing is interesting to me. So they have come out, and because that was kind of people's first kind of go to. Whoa, it's not going to be gory. It's not going to be bloody. It's not going to be what we know. And what's his name? What's his name? The producer or Fuller, something Fuller. Maybe?
Brian Fuller.
Brian Fuller. Anyway, he's already come out and said, no, there's going to be gore. There's going to be kills. Like, we're going to have kills every episode, all that stuff. So I'm still a little bit nervous because it isn't like our traditional, like you say, like they've done all those, right? It Follows and all those things. And I did like X and I did like Pearl, but they are not our traditional like hack and slash, right? I mean, that's not, they do try and take that storytelling element to a different level, but I'm also open to it. So to your point, if it fleshes things out, and I've also read and heard that it's not just a prequel in that it's only going to be Pamela. They're calling it basically a continuation of the first sort of one. So it's going to be more like, okay, here's all the Friday 13th original stuff, and then we're going to tack onto that kind of thing. I think so. I think we could even get Jason first season.
If anyone from A24, anyone listens to this, I beg of you one thing. Give me the one thing that they took away from me in the new 3 Halloween movies, which were also, by the way, done by the same, Peacock, Universal, all of that. Like, we got it on Peacock. So there is a chance for a joint horror universe. Not what I'm talking about. This is Friday the 13th. Gore, great. I need nudity. There was not a single breast in the entire Halloween trilogy. Not one.
That is a good point.
This is Friday the 13th. A number 1 horror wrestling podcast on PornHub. Yes. I need nudity in this show.
It is really weird. You're right.
I know you're not opposed to it. Please, nudity in our franchise.
That's a good, really, really solid take, because it's not like they weren't going at it with an R rating anyway. It's like the allure, and I guess maybe we're just fantasizing about the 80s horror. And to me, 80s horror will always be the best. But you're spot on, man. I didn't even think about it like that. It's like, stop trying to make this stuff artsy. Just go back to the roots. Let's do it. Just go back to the roots. Anyway, but so I am super thrilled about Crystal Lake. We don't have enough details, I guess, to know any more excitement other than thank God it's happening, and they're back on. Like, at the end of the day, they know they just want to make money. So okay, you own your stuff, I own mine. Well, let's make money together. So
between that and them announcing Welcome to Derry, like, there's a lot of really great horror content.
Oh, I don't think I saw that. Is that an?
They are
prequel.
Yes, they're making a whole prequel series about Derry called Welcome to Derry. That is a prequel to the It franchise, where they're probably going to cover all of the backstory stuff that you get in the book and that they briefly mention in, the new movies with all the tragedies that happen around him showing up and all of these things. So
really, that's cool.
Yes.
What's that going to be on?
Derry as well. That I don't know. So
okay, interesting. Check that out.
Yeah, I don't remember. It might be Hulu. I don't remember exactly what streaming service, but that's going to be another show coming out.
Last one before we get on to Survivor Series thoughts. What did you think of the new Hellraiser?
So, I have a love-hate relationship with the Hellraiser franchise. I love the first 3 movies. 3 is my favorite.
Wow, you go into 3. You like 3. Wow.
3 is my favorite because it is Hellraiser Unleashed. It is the most entertaining version of Hellraiser, in my opinion, because he is not bound by the box. We get all of the personality of Pinhead coming out and doing all of these things, and it's just him having fun. So I love 3. Actually, through 4, because 4 gives you the backstory of Lamershan's box and all of that, even though they go into
Which
space.
One was Bloodline? Which one was up to Bloodline?
That was 4.
That was 4. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
So so I think I'm on the same page, because up to Bloodline is where I kind
of
cut off.
Yeah, then it gets weird.
Yeah,
I enjoyed this. The only takeaway that I had from the new Hellraiser movie is it didn't feel like Pinhead was as important in this film as I wanted her to be.
Yeah.
You have taken the role of Doug Bradley, and I know they've made movies without Doug Bradley and whatever. But when you're redoing this and you're reintroducing a character, and he is now Pinhead's been the face of this franchise, whether he was meant to be originally or not, I don't feel like they put the emphasis on the character of Pinhead as much. She didn't feel as important as the lead Cenobite as I would have liked her to, or as menacing as I was kind of hoping she would. Outside of that, though, it was a really fun movie. I was very worried because, again, it was another movie that I got very deep into, and I'm like, where are the chains and the hooks and the blood and the skin and the things that I know from the Hellraiser franchise? And it took a while to get there, but once we got there, and they gave it to us. And I was like, okay, cool. The hate side of it is I went to Atlanta to a horror convention, and I went there specifically to meet Doug Bradley and get that picture sign that you see right there. And I was very excited about it. Doug Bradley was not very excited to be there. And when I was like, listen, I came all the way from Chicago specifically just to meet you, this and that. He didn't even really come. He's like, oh, okay, that's nice, and signed it. And next, and like, I'm like, oh, okay, fuck you, dude. Like, I was so excited. I was coming here. I was like, I'm so happy to meet you. Like, Tony Todd, on the other hand, coolest fucking, like,
oh yeah, I heard
Kane
that.
Hodder are two of the coolest people I've ever met.
Yeah,
Tony Todd talked to me about being in Chicago. Like, I'm standing there to take a pic. My wife's taking all these pictures of us. He's just sitting there bullshitting with me. And then we go up to our hotel room and he gets in the elevator. He's like, oh, hey, Matt. Yeah. And bullshit with us on the elevator. Like, coolest fucking guy ever. Nice. Tony Todd's great.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. I agree with that take. I did enjoy it. I went into it with no expectations. Cause it's one of my least, I don't know Hellraiser's franchise as well as probably even you do. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, but I do agree that it just Pinhead could have been
a bigger deal.
Excuse me, a bigger deal. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Are you going to survive before we get to Survivor Series?
I don't think so. All right, try that again. Yeah. Anyway, I did enjoy Hellraiser, but maybe my bar was a little lower set than yours. But anytime you get Hulu doing horror and like actual good horror, I'm for it. And let's get it out there mainstream and a Peacock, all that stuff. So yeah, bring it on for 2023. So that being said, we've monopolized your time quite a bit. So let's just get a final take on Survivor Series coming up here. What is it, this Saturday, I guess?
Yes, this upcoming Saturday.
Yeah. The upcoming Saturday,
yeah.
I feel like we've monopolized BC Hunter's time more than we have mine. Like, I'm out here talking. The poor guy.
he knew he was getting into.
This episode is dedicated to Jay, so it's all good.
So yeah, let's. I mean, maybe let's not go through the whole card because I don't even know if we know the whole card.
It's not much of a card, to be quite honest.
Let's just talk about War Games. Well, I think they'll probably still build. Well, Jesus, the War Games matches alone are going to take what, an hour and a half, probably, for both of them.
Yeah, probably.
Probably pretty close to that. But yeah, I'm interested to get your guys' takes on both of those.
Matt, if you want to lead off, what's your feelings going into it?
So they told us that Survivor Series is not going to be Survivor Series, which I'm actually a big fan of because I have complained on record for years that there is not really a brand split. They don't give a shit about the brand split, and they don't. So the whole idea of like brand supremacy, especially right after a draft and all of that, I've never enjoyed that. As much as I want to love Survivor Series, it's one of the big four, that it's always bothered me in the way, and especially lately within like the last year, the way they've not treated the brands as actual brands, and anyone just kind of goes anywhere and does whatever. So when I was told we're going to get storylines going into Survivor Series that are going to fuel War Games, and it's not going to be red versus blue, I was stoked. Everything Bloodline has been very entertaining and great. They have made me care about what are now the opponents, because you have the Sami Zayn KO storyline, which is a continuation. They now have a former horror writer who is in charge of long-term storytelling at WWE, who's going back and saying, we have this with Sami and Kevin, which is a lot of why Kevin's going to be there. They mentioned, the Roman match with KO and all of these things. So we have that. Then you have, Solo Sikoa coming up and screwing over Drew. And then everything that they built so far with the Brawling Brutes and the Usos and them getting cheated over in their match, and everything makes sense and connects.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Except for, other than I'm going to go after Bloodline, why KO is essentially on this side with these guys. Like we got
Which we still might
between Drew and
hear.
them.
We still might. There is time for them still to flesh
There is
that
time.
out. Yeah.
But those guys, like I'm a huge Solo Sikoa fan. Like Samoa Joe, those kind of guys, as far as like wrestlers, like that for the wrestling aspect of it, that's the shit that I enjoy in the ring, is guys like that who feel like they're just going to go in and beat the tar out of you. So match wise, looking at Drew and Roman, Solo and Sheamus, and then the Usos and the Brawling Brutes, Ridge Holland, the least of that group for me. I just don't feel like he's really risen back to what they tried to make him out to be in NXT after he broke both his legs. And then Sammy and KO, like in War Games, I'm so stoked for this. I'm so excited, and I think they're gonna beat the tar out of each other. I'm gonna fucking love it. Like it's gonna be great. On the women's side, feels a little rushed and put together. I love all of the participants, and we do have a lot of women who were in former War Games matches to help carry this match through for, an Alexa Bliss or an Asuka who hasn't been in there, might not be familiar with that. Asuka will be fine. I think you can put Asuka in fucking anything and she's fine. She'll do what she's got to do. And Alexa too. I think Alexa gets a lot of shit for as great and talented as she actually is and has been in the career that she's had. I don't know who the fifth woman. I feel like it's got to be Candice LeRae, but I don't know if it's going to be Candice LeRae. I'm worried that they might throw in like an Emma or a Dana Brooke in that last spot for Bianca's team, where while that'd be great for them, that doesn't do much for my excitement of seeing them get in the ring and do this. Candice has that about her where she'll probably do something really cool and give us a really high spot that, and again, the history with War Games and being in it and knowing like Candice will give us some cool shit in there. But the way that match kind of came together and fell into place seemed a little clunkier than the way that they did the men's match, but still excited for. Like Rhea's just like, I'm on your team now, after they were like, hey Mia, fuck Rhea Ripley, come join us, like she sucks, and now she's like, Rhea's like, no, I'm on your team now, and they're like, oh yeah, yay. Like, so
that's a good point. BC, where are you at with it?
Yeah, I'm probably more excited for the men's version of War Games than the women's version. I'm so tired now of this damage control storyline with Bianca and Asuka and Alexa. I love Bianca and Asuka. Don't get me wrong, but just this whole storyline is just, there would be much more heat if Bailey and those guys had the titles going into it than not. That's the big thing. Yeah, I'm with you, Matt. The whole Rhea Ripley joining thing didn't really make much sense. Yeah, Mia's on the other team, but that's just not enough glue there for me to make that interesting. So it feels like that TBD's got to be somebody big, like either Sasha coming back, because it is Boston, although I'm not massively on the Sasha bandwagon, but her coming back or Becky coming back or somebody like that where they had put some oomph to it, or maybe even Charlotte coming back and jumping in there and doing that. But yeah, that women's War Games match is just going to be there. But I'm sure it's WWE. I'm sure they'll entertain the hell out of us throughout it all.
Yeah.
The men, there's lots of storylines going on there, and they've done such a good job of slow building this whole thing, because you're sitting there at the beginning going, who's going to face the bloodline in this? And then all of a sudden it's the Brawling Brutes. You're like, okay, maybe I can see that. Then they got some nice heat on Sheamus with the whole Uso attack on him, which was great. And now you got Drew, makes kind of sense coming in. And KO, I've been saying this for a long time. I think they're laying the groundworks for KO and Sammy costing the bloodline. And here comes KO and Sammy facing the Usos and taking those titles off them. Myself, I think KO is the pick that should be taking the title off of Roman versus anybody else. I think it's ironic that they're
Canadian though, just
no, not because of that. No. But I think, ironically, since they're talking about Mr. Austin coming back and stuff like that, I think you got another possible Austin-like character in KO. And maybe that's a nice rub that Steve Austin could give to him. Whereas I'm just not on the Cody train for him taking the title. I don't want The Rock to take the title or any of that stuff.
I am on the Cody train. Just so
choo, motherfucker. I am on that train.
I'm on the Cody after whoever beats Roman train, not the Cody beating Roman. That doesn't work for me, dog, as Mr. Sammy would say there. But yeah, like I could see KO beating Roman and then somehow Cody beating him or something. But yeah, that's just my thing.
I wouldn't hate KO, but
what I was gonna say was with Cody, there's this, my dad never got that recognition. My brother never got that recognition, never reached that. I would love to see the other royal family finally reach the heights of getting that championship, that thing that Dusty never got, the thing that, Dustin Goldust never got in WWE. Like, they've been around. They are a very special family in wrestling. And Cody went out and worked his ass off to prove that he's there, and then even went so far as to make it so he could never be champion in the company that he essentially helped start or started. So coming back to WWE and seeing him hold the title that his dad never won, that his brother never won, despite all of their success in other places, that is kind of special to me, and why I'm on the Cody. Like, that story in and of itself has got me on the Cody wagon. So I'm good however they do it.
If they build that story up, which WWE can do, if they can build that up, really putting the Rhodes family on a pedestal, I just worry they're not going to do that. Although I guess with Triple H, he loves Dusty, so he
I don't
would.
think it'd
Yeah,
be an
so you
issue,
got something there, Matt. Yeah,
Yeah.
if they build that story up, that's a little bit different for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I can't. I'm pretty much on the same page with all of you. The men's match, after watching Friday SmackDown, I was like, oh yeah, like I'm so into it. I wasn't there yet until last week's show, and then I was like, okay, all of this is sort of adding up now. And then KO kind of showing up, and I didn't even think about them even them connecting the dots with Butch being the only guy with experience. That even threw Butch in there with a relevant reason why he's in there, right? He's the only guy to have ever been in a War Games match, blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, that's cool. And I forgot that they brought up the KO match from wherever it was in the pandemic era for Roman. Like, all of that tying it in is so cool. But yeah, I think the women's match is going to be okay just because of who's in there. Who was I thinking? What was the there's rumors that, what's her name? The one that Triple H was really high on, she busted her knee. She was like Wales.
Tegan Knox.
Tegan Knox. Rumors that she's already re-signed and back. Like, maybe that would make sense because you tie that in with Dakota Kai and all that stuff, right? So
I was there in Chicago for the first ever women's War Games when Dakota turned on Tegan, all of that. So that would make it special for me, because sitting in the arena watching that happen and then seeing her be a surprise final entrant to finally get the redemption against Dakota Kai and all of that she never got,
all built in
injuries. And so I'm with
that.
that.
That would get a huge pop. That would get a huge pop.
There's also Chelsea Green out there that's being floated around, but I don't know if she makes sense from a storyline perspective, but we'll see. Anyway, I'm with you. I don't think it's going to be. I think it will come through in the end. I think it will be a good match, but maybe there's just less build for it going into it. But the men's one's going to be good. Anything like? Are we getting anything with Rollins? Like, what's going on with that? Are we getting a Rollins match on? They haven't announced anything yet, have they?
Theory, maybe.
Yeah,
or Bobby, or a triple threat.
Could be triple threat kind of action. So we'll see. Anyway, all right, boys. I think this was we've had quite the chat here, and we've made BC kind of sit through all of our discussion through.
Oh man, this is great.
It was good. It was awesome, man. I thought this was going to be fun, and it was. So
I won't pull what you did during our old school talk. I won't say I enjoyed it, boys, but I'm never going to go watch that stuff.
I was just being honest. You could be honest too. It's fine.
No. I like I said, I am an 80s horror guy. The rest of the stuff has just not been, but I mean, I still remember Sleepaway Camp. That one just.
Oh my God. There you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sleepaway Camp.
That was one of the first horrors that I ever saw was Sleepaway Camp. And then of course
there's a Canadian connection there too, isn't there? I thought there might've been a Canadian connection. Maybe not.
I don't know.
Might have been, but anyway, but yeah, thanks again, Matt. This was fantastic. Looking forward to future takes on your shows, and yeah, thanks again for stopping by, man.
Yeah, Matt. One more time before you go, why don't you give your information again, so in case somebody made it to the end of this episode.
If you made it and you're like, hey, that guy sounds cool, let me go see what he does. You can follow me on Twitter at Matt at MATTRIDDER, or as I'm saying now, MATTRIDDER. Shout out to Jeff Jarrett, who I cannot stand. Creation World is the banner under which everything Smackin It Raw and Getting Off exists. So if you go to creationworld.com or follow them on Twitter and Instagram at It's Creation World, ITSCREATIA World. you guys can find everything you want there. There are link trees, Linktree/Smackin It Raw, Linktree/Creation World. It'll get you everything, including the links to PornHub, where you can come watch us in a video version, or the audio links if you don't want to do that, or YouTube and Twitch. We're live every Friday at 11 p.m. Central, so please come check us out there. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for having me on. I had a blast. This was great.
Oh, we really appreciate it,
No,
man.
it
And
was awesome.
we went the whole episode without even mentioning Matt Riddle and during this whole thing, because I know he's your mortal enemy.
I'm surprised you guys didn't mess up my name and call me Matt Riddle. That's what everyone else does. So
No, this has been fantastic. Really appreciate you coming on and taking this much time. And I know this is right up Mr. Myers' his alley as far as the whole horror side of it. And I love that we're expanding out and getting other genres on here as well, because there's lots of great stuff out there for people to be
Yeah.
to watching and listening to.
Maybe next year we'll have to do the November to Dismember.
There you go.
We do.
There you go.
Hopefully
It's all horror
better.
all the
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
All right. So on that note, I'm going to wrap this thing up, and I'm going to say, on behalf of the Warden Matt Ritter, on behalf of the Nightmare Jay Myers, on behalf of the nicknameless BC Hunter, I'm saying that we are out of here. You're repeating yourself, dude.
I know. It's good. It's good.